Hello, everybody. So I just wanted to bring the stammering vlogs back. One of the reasons I wanted to do this was because yesterday I watched a film called I Swear, and whilst it wasn't necessarily about stammering, there were lots of comparable um, storylines, scenes that I could so relate to in my own journey. And I'm sure if you are watching this and you stammer as well, you will be able to relate to them as well. I don't know what I was syndrome. I purposefully didn't watch any trailers or read up on it because I always feel like that spoils the film a little bit. So I went with no expectations really, but it had such a impact on me. Watching it, I mean, for most of it, I was in tears. It was so powerful. And I just wanted to discuss that really because we're obviously very in the stammering world and the stammering community, but there's so many other conditions and things like that that we all link into, and I just felt how big that film is going to be for the Tourette's community. A bit like when the King's speech was released a few years ago, and everybody seemed to want to talk about stammering, and it really raised a spotlight on it. I can only imagine now if you're within that Tourette's online community support group, how big that film is going to be. It would be huge. But I just wanted to talk through a few scenes from that film that really stood out for me. So one of the scenes was when he was just starting to realise as a young teenager, that he was a little bit different to everybody else, and it wasn't as profound as it went on to be.
A tale that she told of a harsh reproof or trivial event
English lesson at school
that changed some childish day to tragedy.
Trying to read from a
Told, and it seemed
page, and he just
it seemed that
couldn't get the words out because he was just interrupted by the ticks constantly. Now, if you're watching this and you stammer, I'm sure you don't need me to explain how similar that is to stammering. And then the other children in the class, they start to laugh, and then the school teacher doesn't really know what the hell is going on, so they don't know how to react, and they just think it's him acting up. A story we've heard many times and experienced ourselves, but and then that led on to other instances within the school where he would get punished for his tics and not being able to eat, and then him having a tic and his food spilling out of his mouth and things like that, and just real being punished for things that are completely out of his control, and just how similar I found that to my own, and I'm sure our own stammering experiences when we were younger. And then his family environment and his parents not knowing what it was or what to do or how to deal with it, how to try and help him. And I'm sure that's a lot different if those scenarios were to happen in this day and age with the internet. But I think I'm right in saying this period of time was in the mid-80s, late 80s, where there was obviously no internet. I'm sure nobody had heard of Tourette's syndrome, as I'm sure, like us, nobody knew what a stammer was. It's difficult to Google it and look things up that is at everybody's touch of a finger nowadays, and then kind of battling between them sort of thinking he's doing it on purpose and him acting up, and it's a part of adolescence, and then also trying to figure out how are we going to help him, and in the end, I don't want to say too much about the film because I don't want to spoil it, but his father ends up leaving the family home just because he just doesn't know how to deal with it. I would really like to think that doesn't happen now with the whole resource that the World Wide Web brings us, but you know, it was really, really powerful. And then during the film as well, much later on in life, he's doing really, really well in life, and actually the hospital put somebody else with Tourette's syndrome in touch with him to try and help her with her own journey and understanding the condition. And there's this really great scene where they're just talking and they just instantly get one another, and it just instantly reminded me of the very first time I ever went on the Starfish project and actually met all the people that stammer, and just talking and just couldn't believe, like, oh my gosh, I do that too. I thought I was the only person in the world that sort of went to these strange extremes to avoid speaking and things like that. And I just remember it just blew my mind completely. So that was a really powerful scene as well. And then there's also a great scene where he builds a relationship with a guy who sort of believes in him, and he gives him a job, etc. And there's a great scene where he says to him, look, I don't think it's you with the problem. It's everybody around us not understanding. And I just thought, yeah, absolutely. And he goes on to encourage him to talk to people, talk openly about his Tourette's syndrome, to raise awareness and to help other people and to let people into his world. And I just thought that is so linked to my own stammering journey, how I've ended up doing stuff like this, for instance, and he actually goes on to speak at school assemblies and to set up support groups and to do stuff online. And I just thought, oh, this is just so relatable. It was really, really good. But it is that other unless we let people into our world and know what stammering is all about and what it feels like to stammer and the barriers and stuff like that, how can we ever expect society to understand us? Which leads me nicely onto next week, 22nd of October. It comes around every year. Is International Stammering Awareness Day. So why not take the opportunity just to talk to somebody about your stammer, whether that be at work, whether that be one of your friends, even a family member. Just take that first step, and once you've done that, trust me, it will be huge. So please do that. There were other scenes as well, such as him trying to build up the courage to go on, knock on people's doors and things like that, because he didn't want to get into a situation where he would be embarrassed and he would swear at them and things like that. And I'm just thinking, yeah, that's so relatable, for us, about picking up the courage to make that telephone call or to join into that conversation, etc. So relatable. It was so raw, and I think in some ways it was more relatable than what the King's speech was. So even though the King's speech was directly about stammering in a documentary about his life, there is an element, I was thinking, that he is the king and therefore he is sheltered a little bit from the day-to-day, what every human being has to do. For him, he doesn't have this same pressures in having to find a job. He doesn't have to speak to people if he doesn't necessarily want to in certain situations, obviously. He doesn't have to go to a restaurant to order food or go to the bar, or he doesn't need to go to a job interview. All those things. He doesn't need to try and start a relationship, all those sorts of things. Whereas I swear, even though it was directly about stammering, it was about Tourette, it was so much more relatable because those challenges were exactly the same that I have and what you have. So I really encourage everybody to go and watch that film if you possibly can. Thank you for listening to me. Like I say, next week is Stammering Awareness Day, so it's a great opportunity to push those comfort zones and do something that you wouldn't necessarily do. And if you could share this video around, I'd really appreciate it, and hope to speak to you all soon. Thanks very much.